Alrighty, what's going on, everybody? Before we hop into this podcast, I just want to ask you guys to please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It helps my channel grow a lot. You can do so just by clicking the little red subscribe button below the video right here. It's free, and it helps my channel grow. We recently hit 100 subscribers, so thank you guys so much for that, and let's get into the podcast. Alrighty, what's going on, everybody? I'm back with another podcast. Today we're going to have it on Coach Tony Shiffman from Lake Forest College. He's the offensive line coach there. So with that being said, I'll let him give a little background, and then we'll get into it.
So like Sam said, I am the current offensive line coach at Lake Forest College. I, before that, got to know Sam really well as the head football coach at Fort Madison High School in Fort Madison. I spent 2 really good seasons there and had a ton of fun and met some really great people. Before that, I spent 2 years at Rossview High School in Clarksville, Tennessee, as the offensive line coach and helped coach track and field. Spent some time in North Carolina as a football coach and got my first head coaching experience as a track and field head coach. And then got my career started, so to speak, at Springfield High School in Springfield, Illinois, where I was a former player and got to work there for 7 great years and really get my feet wet in coaching and learn a lot and get some good experience that way. I played college football at Illinois College, where I got to meet some Fort Madison people that I ended up working with at Fort Madison. So it was kind of funny how things sort of went full circle from knowing it as a player to becoming a coach there. So it's kind of cool that way.
Yeah. So maybe talk a little bit about what initially got you into football, maybe as a kid or in high school, whenever you officially got into football. Maybe tell that story.
Yeah, so my mom actually is the reason I played football. Growing up, I was never an athletic kid. I was kind of a chubby, fat kid, and I played baseball and played t-ball and did those types of things, but was never really good at them. And then going into 6th grade, my mother and father sort of said, "Hey, let's give this a shot." I was at first very against it. It was new, it was different. I did not want to do it. It was hard. So I tried to fight it. My mother kind of pushed me into staying with it. And so 6th grade finished out. I didn't play a lot, if any. And then, as kids do, we start to grow and you kind of grow into your bodies a little bit. And so 7th grade came around and my mother still said, do you want to do this? And I said, yeah, I think let's give it another year. Let's go. And then that year I started to play a little bit more. And then going into 8th grade again, your body keeps growing. And then 8th grade was sort of when I got hooked. And that's when I got, just jumped in both feet. And so played 8th grade, played high school football for all 4 years, got to play college football for 4 years. And then I was kind of a dummy and I ended up playing 13 years of semi-pro football after that too. So I couldn't hang it up, didn't want to hang it up and ended up playing essentially amateur football for a long time and continuing to beat the crap out of my body.
Yeah. Maybe talk a little bit about where you are nowadays, especially for the people back home in Fort Madison. Maybe a lot of people don't know what you do now. So maybe just give a quick overview of what you do and then maybe a day in the life of Coach Shiffman.
Sure. So I'm currently coaching college football. I'm at a Division III college in Lake Forest, Illinois, Lake Forest College. And it was something that the opportunity I'd been trying to get into the college game way before I got to Fort Madison. So it was something that I had been pursuing for probably 5 or 6 years prior to getting this opportunity. And it was something that happened. I can remember you can ask Derek Doherty, who's now the head football coach, him and I, because we had lots of conversations about his opportunities and my opportunities and everything. And at the time when this came about, I was not leaving. I was going to be at Fort Madison for another season. That was my plan. And it sort of just things fell into place. And I can remember telling Derek, I think the head coach reached out to me on a Monday. I interviewed over the phone on a Wednesday. I interviewed in person on a Friday. In the same week. And then that next Monday, he called and offered me the job. And so, it was like boom, 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 real quick. and it was just one of those opportunities that you can't pass up. And it was, again, I had a great time in Fort Madison. We did a lot of really good things. I think for the most part, a lot of people were happy with what we did. I know there were some people who were fighters against it, and that you'll have that. It is what it is. That's another conversation for another day. But so it's I am a full-time football coach now, essentially. Whereas at Fort Madison, you get to work at 8 o'clock and get your lesson plans ready and get your classrooms ready. Now I get to work at 8 o'clock and have a staff meeting, and then now, especially during the pandemic, it's recruiting. I mean, it's recruiting almost 24/7. It's calling recruits and texting recruits and messaging them on Facebook or on Twitter, and just constant sort of relationship building with those guys to try to convince them to come to your school. So we still get to do a lot of football things. We still are doing, like a lot of football coaches are doing now. We're doing a ton of Zoom meetings. We're doing a ton of Zoom installs and things of that nature. But our day-to-day right now is not too far off from what we do during the actual season when things are normal as well. It's still obviously a ton of football, but there are some. I think one of the misconceptions is that it's constant, and that was, I can remember on my first day at Lake Forest, or my second day at Lake Forest. We had an off day from the kids where they just worked out, so we didn't have any football activities. And I remember it was about 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and I was in my office, and the offensive coordinator who's got the office next to me left, and I kind of said, when are we allowed to leave? Is it like an 8 to 5? And he said, no, if you're done with your stuff, go. There's, you don't have to stay there. So it was kind of an eye opener for me, just not really knowing what to expect. So it was during the season we get our own downtime, and we can go to the gym, and we can go to eat lunch, and we can go do whatever, get a haircut, get our car worked on, all that kind of stuff. So it's at our level especially, there's a lot of downtime that you can take advantage of.
Okay. Yeah. So before this current gig that you have right now, you had never coached college, correct?
Right. Correct.
So you had never seen kind of the scouting side of things firsthand. So maybe talk a little bit about your initiation into the scouting side and how that works.
Yeah. So my only experience with that type of deal was from when guys came to the school. When I would talk to those guys that came in to recruit, at Fort Madison or at other schools I'd been at, that was my really only experience with it. And so one of the things I would do was I would try to sort of pick things out that they would do that I liked, or things that they did that I didn't like. I mean, I can remember a couple guys coming into Fort Madison, especially, that just sort of their demeanor was poor, and they weren't really not energetic, not like they were like bouncing off the walls with energy, but they just didn't seem excited to be there. And there was a couple guys that flat out just sort of ghosted us. And so that really kind of turned me off on those guys. And, I said, if I'm ever in this opportunity, I'm definitely not going to do that. I'm definitely going to do a better job than these guys. But again, it's all, the biggest thing for me is everybody's going to be different. So every recruiter, whether at Division III, NAI, junior college, or University of Iowa, everybody's going to recruit differently. But when you kind of boil it all down and get it all down to the nuts and bolts, it's all about building relationships, because that's what it is. It's all about making sure that those kids trust you, that those parents in a way trust you, and they're going to put their next 4 years in your hands, so to speak. So my style has been very much that, building relationships. I try to talk to the kids like they want to be talked to. I try to treat them the way I would want to be treated if I were in their shoes, and be genuine and open and honest with them, and not try to BS them, and not try to fill their head with wild stories or wild promises or anything like that, and just be open and honest with them. And I find that that's been a good strategy and a good practice to keep.
Yeah, sweet. Maybe switching gears a little bit, maybe talk a little bit about whether right now or in the past, who has inspired you in terms of the football side of things?
Oh man, I mean, there's so many people. Everybody I've worked with has had some sort of lesson I've learned whether it's a positive lesson or a negative lesson, whether, there's from when I was a player. I mean, I can remember lessons that I learned from my high school coaches that I probably relayed on to you guys when I was there. And I can remember lessons. I mean, truthfully, I don't remember a lot from my college coaches because I don't know if it was me as that type of kid or not really wanting to pay attention or anything, or maybe just they were doing things that didn't resonate with me. But there's not really one person or one coach that motivates me in that way. It's just been, I've gotten to learn so many things from so many different people. I mean, my head coach at my first head coach when I was working at Springfield High School, I learned kind of about the family atmosphere, then I learned about sort of becoming more of a program from the next guy. And then I learned a lot of old school values from my time in North Carolina. I learned a ton of organization and planning from my time in Tennessee. And then sort of, the beauty part of it is when you get to be your head coach, you get to sort of trial by fire with how those things work. And so there's a ton, again, going on the positive and negative things, there's a ton of lessons I learned at Fort Madison that if I'm ever in the opportunity to be a head coach again, I will take as positives. And there's a ton of things I did at Fort Madison that if I'm ever a head coach again, I'll probably never do. So that's sort of the beauty of coaching, especially at the levels that I've been at, is that while it's still a business, it's not the meat market business that like the Power 5 is, that like the Big Ten is, where jobs are on the line. It's sort of a little bit more laid back and a little bit more pure, I guess.
Yeah. So from the time that you kind of started getting into football, I think you said it was like 6th, 7th grade. Did you know that was going to be a huge part of your life? Did you always want to be a coach from like that point on?
No. So truthfully, my path, my intent originally was I wanted to be on the business side of things. So my degree, my bachelor's degree is in sports management. So my original plan was to be like a general manager or like director of player personnel, something along those lines, where coaching was completely out of it. And I sort of tried to go that path for a little while, and it would just sort of fizzled. And then I ended up working in management, retail management for 3 or 4 years. And then when I was 26, my position coach in high school got the head coaching job at Springfield High School. So he had coached there for a year. I went and talked to him that summer and just said, hey, you know what? I'm kind of at this point lost. I don't really know what to do. Can I come help out? And he basically said, yes, you're going to help out. This is not a question. You are going to do this. And he really pushed me into coaching. And then he's the one who kind of pushed me into teaching as well. So it was sort of hand in the glove moment. Once I started doing it, it kind of all fell into place. And then I really couldn't see myself doing anything else besides that. So I got kind of a late start into the coaching gig, kind of, I don't want to say wasted 5 years doing outside things, but everyone's path is different, and eventually got me, my path took me to where I needed to be. I found the road, the correct road to take. So it was something that wasn't really in the cards at first, but kind of really got into it big time.
Okay. Yeah. So what would you say your coaching philosophy is overall, if you had to kind of sum it up a little bit?
I think, I like to have fun. I think a lot of there are probably some people that would argue that, but I try to be very much a player's coach and treat you guys sort of the way I would like to be treated, and make sure that everybody knows it is a game. And again, hindsight's always 20/20. Are those lessons that I probably should have done a better job of in my career? Yeah, because there were some times when it became more than a game, and your competitive edge sort of takes over, and you want to win at all costs, and you get in that mindset. But I definitely would call myself a player's coach, because I like to have fun, and I love the camaraderie of the game, and I understand, being a former player, how important it is. And so I really, really, really want to to kind of build those bonds with players and teams, and that's when you get the really fun teams to be around, when you have that special bond.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe from your time as a player and now your time as an O-line coach for sure, this might start a little controversy, especially with on your Twitter. Are offensive linemen specifically underappreciated in your opinion?
Oh, definitely. I think they are. And it's you, I mean, you played the position, you were a guy that sort of got thrust into it, and you saw how it was, but it's unfortunately the untrained eye, when they watch a football game, they only see the linemen make mistakes. They don't see when the linemen do good things. And that's offense and defense, truthfully. I mean, defense, obviously, it's different because somebody can make a big play or a sack, but the untrained eye doesn't see when that nose tackle takes up 2 blocks and the middle linebacker can make a play. They don't see those types of things. So it's definitely underappreciated. I think we are coming into an era right now in the NFL and college football where it's starting to become a lot more appreciated, though. You're starting to see a lot more people pay attention to it. There's so much activity on social media, whether it's guys training or video clips or things of that nature. So you're starting to see it a lot more. I keep referring to it as a renaissance of the offensive line, where it's starting to become noticed a lot more, and not just for bad things, but for good things and good play and great athletes. So it's on the trend up, I think, but it's taken a while just because it's people still see it with that untrained eye.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe another little bit of a controversial question, but you could probably take a middle ground on this one. What would you say is more important, diet or exercise, and especially towards the offensive line thing?
Oh boy, I think it depends. I'm gonna go middle ground. I think it depends because it depends on the goal. So what at high school level, when I was coaching you guys, everything was about trying to put weight on. Yeah. We tried, and it wasn't so much as trying to get as big as possible, but you wanted to take a 200-pound kid and try to bulk him up to 215 or 220. So that a lot is diet. Whereas now at my level, it's a lot about trying to lose weight more so than put on weight. So that becomes exercise, but that also becomes diet as well. So there is, I think there's a happy medium in there. I think they both kind of play off of each other. I am a big believer in sort of exercise is good, but I think your diet is a little bit better. If your exercise sort of dwindles, but you have a really, really on point diet, you're going to see better results. So. Yeah. And I think it is underappreciated. Again, it's kind of like diet's probably like the offensive lineman of fitness, because it's underappreciated. People only see it when it does bad.
Yeah, I would agree with you that I think it's a mix for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so talking about the Hog Football Chat, which is obviously a big thing now. You're Twitter famous because of it. Talk about how that got started and what kind of motivated you to start that?
Yeah, so it was about 5 years ago now, and it kind of, there was another chat on Wednesdays called the Texas High School Football Chat, and he started it. His name's Chris Fisher. He started it a long time ago, and I started participating in it, and it kind of just evolved into myself and another guy communicated and said, hey, let's try something different. Let's try this and see how it works. And it really was just originally just a reason for us to get together and talk football some more. And another night of the week, kind of during the off season when you could clinic and talk about football things and share information with people. And it sort of just took off on its own and really become something. I don't think, if you were to ask me 5 years ago, what's your end game for this? I don't know if I would have told you what's going on now. We've done 3 clinics where we've got, I don't know how many followers. It's been super special. The relationships I've made are uncountable, and the the people I've talked to, the networking has been unbelievable. So it's a great fraternity, and it's part of I like to believe, not to be kind of arrogant, but I like to believe it's sort of part of that renaissance and helping that renaissance of offensive linemen, where it's being that social media aspect of it. It's people are paying attention to it, and it's becoming a norm and really important part of the game. So it's been fun. It's been super awesome to do, and it's something I know I look forward to every Monday night, and I know there's a lot of other guys that look forward to it on Monday nights as well. So
yeah, sweet. Talk about how the current situation, the pandemic that's going on right now, how that's affected you specifically, and maybe your college as a whole in terms of the football program.
Sure. So we are very much kind of in the uncertain points right now. We don't kind of know what's going to happen. We don't know time frames. We do know, the only thing we know as a college is that our president has said we are going to operate when campus opens in August. We are going to operate as a normal semester. So we don't know kind of how. There's a lot of talk right now with a lot of schools about ending at Thanksgiving. So we don't know if that's going to happen, but we're trying to keep things as normal as possible. Obviously for us during the spring, we did a lot of Zoom meetings. We did a lot of Zoom installs with our players, a lot of contact that way through social media and through phone calls and things of that nature. But it's been a very different time for sure. I mean, just because everyone kind of doesn't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's been, I joke a lot. It's been like Groundhog Day. It's been the same day over and over again, which is true. I mean, we try to keep, I know in my personal life, try to keep things as normal as possible and try to get out and not necessarily get out, but like go to the store and be as normal as we can when we need things, not just going out just because for fun. So it is what it is. It's just one of those things that kind of, hopefully we can get through it. And like I said, get back to some sort of normalcy sooner rather than later, but it's definitely changing the landscape of a lot of things for a long time to come.
Yeah. So maybe talk a little bit about where, this is kind of a tough question for anybody, but maybe where you see yourself 5 years from now.
Oh gosh, Sam. I don't know. I mean, definitely still coaching. This was one of those jobs that I took because I'm not getting any younger, unfortunately, and this is one of those things that you sort of have to get involved with before. It's one of those things. Unfortunately, coaching college football, I've made the joke before on Twitter a long time ago, but it's like those memes you see where, oh, you need 25 years of experience to work this job, but you have to have, you can't get the experience unless you get the experience. So, it was one of those things where definitely needed to get the experience to get my foot in the door. It's one of those, that's a question I probably go through my head too often, because I ask myself, do I want to be a head coach again at the high school level? I don't know. Do I want to be a head coach at the college level? I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things where when I find an opportunity that is good and hopefully I can stay somewhere for a long time, I will. All I know is I want to keep coaching. I mean, that's what I'm good at. It's what I'm a far better coach than a teacher, unfortunately. Classroom teacher, obviously coaching and teaching go hand in hand. But I was never really good in the classroom, and I can say that, I can talk trash about myself. So if I get back to the high school game, I do, but I just know in 5 years I'll still be coaching football. I'll still be hopefully doing everything I do on social media, having fun, and just kind of living life and enjoying every moment.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on my follow-up question to that is, do you see yourself as a head football coach again?
I don't know. Again, it's one of those things. I know if I do, there's so many lessons I've learned since my time at Fort Madison, so many lessons I've learned in positive and things to do and things not to do. I know that I definitely will go into it with a different mindset. than any other, than every job you take, you gotta sort of change your mindset. So I definitely go into it with a different mindset than what the job I've got now. So um, I don't know if I can really answer that question. I think if I stay in the college game, I'd like to make that gradual climb, to maybe an offensive coordinator again, and then see what happens from there. I'll never say, never say never, but at this point, it's not what I'm looking for. I kind of like doing what I'm doing and seeing how far I can climb that ladder, as a lineman coach. So it's been really fun. But if the opportunity comes along that you can't pass up, is there for the taking, you got to take it.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you have, okay, say there's a kid that, 7th grade kid, maybe wants to play football, but isn't sure. What would you say to that kid?
I talk to them and ask them kind of what their concerns were and why they didn't want to play. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are scared of the game right now, even though the game is as safe as it's ever been. And I think it's important that they understand that if they don't want to play, it's not the end of the world. Because let's say, I mean, I know plenty of my friends that didn't start even playing football until they were a freshman or sophomore in high school. So, if they don't want to play as a 7th grader, that doesn't mean they won't want to play as an 8th grader. So I think a lot of times those kids they feel a lot of pressure, and it's important to those kids that they just maybe get a, hey, it's not a, hey, it's okay. You don't want to coddle them or anything, but just hey, if you aren't comfortable doing it this year, let's talk again later on. And so, unfortunately, I think that kind of gets brushed aside sometimes. I think it's important that kids at that age especially are playing every sport they can, and trying to be not just a sport-specific guy, but being that multi-sport athlete, especially at that young age, because you don't want to get too much burnout for kids because it happens. So just talking to them and finding out kind of what they like, what they don't like, and obviously as an ambassador to the game, promoting it and talking the positives about it, but trying to just find out what kind of their goals are and what they want to achieve.
Yeah. And follow up to that one, last question. What would be your advice to a new coach, whether that be football or any other sport?
Don't try to be somebody you're not. Be yourself. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to go in and try to coach like anybody else. I'm going to coach like I coach, and that's my style. Those are my philosophies, and that's sort of how I've been. I think there was probably a point in time early in my career where I tried to be somebody I wasn't, and it doesn't work. You've got to be your own coach. You've got to have your style, like you asked about, in your philosophy. So, I would hope that, I'll just use Coach Doherty. I would hope that Derek Doherty doesn't try to coach like me. He needs to be like Derek Doherty, and I know he does. So that's good. But just sort of develop your own style and philosophy, and I think be open and honest with kids and build relationships, especially at the high school level. Build relationships, because those kids sometimes are going through tough things that they need to have somebody that they can have a conversation with and that they can trust. And if they don't trust you, they'll never play for you. And I think it's important to build those relationships so you have that.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you have any last minute thoughts or ideas, questions, or anything like that?
No, this was good. This was fun. I think I think you're doing a great thing. I think this is really cool, the coaches you're talking to. And I think, you're somebody who's very, very passionate, very prideful about your time at Fort Madison. I think that's awesome. And I wish we'd have had 15 more of you during our time there, but I'm pleased and happy that I got to coach you for your junior and senior year. So, it was a great, hopefully we built that relationship I talked about, and I'm glad to see you're doing well.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome. We can do it again sometime. Talk all about the Hog Football Chat and everything like that. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. That was Coach Tony Shiffman.